Well,
my cat just joined us.
Oh, yay! Yes. I love special guests. What's your cat's name?
This is Penny Lane.
Yay! Yeah. Oh, Beatles fan.
She likes to burrow down, so.
Hey, today I want to talk about the issue of teacher wellness and teacher mental health awareness in general. It's just a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, and I've done some writing on it before. So I invited Emma Pass from the London 19 Innovator Cohort to come and talk to us. So start by give us a little introduction and then tell us a little bit about your original Innovator project.
Absolutely. So hello, my name is Emma, and I am currently a 7th, 8th, and 9th grade English teacher. I live in Colorado right now, but I have a kind of long and complicated backstory in terms of my teaching and my teaching story. And I think in terms of this topic, maybe starts even before I became a teacher. I've always kind of struggled a lot with anxiety. And that led me to, after college, I didn't become a teacher right away. I was working in business, and I was kind of traveling and doing a bunch of things, and decided to become a yoga teacher first, because yoga was one of the things that helped me most with anxiety, yoga and mindfulness. So I became a yoga teacher and absolutely loved teaching. And when I studied English in college, and people would always ask me, what do you want to do when you graduate? Become a teacher? And I think just on principle, I was like, no, like English majors can do other things besides be teachers. So on principle, I was like, I will not be a teacher. And then I became a yoga teacher, and I was like, I love teaching. I like planning. I like teaching. I like students. I love all of it. So decided to go back and get my license to become a teacher, but always with the intention that I would bring that mindfulness and yoga element into the classroom. So my first job teaching, I was in Las Vegas, Nevada, which is a completely wild school district, and it's a totally wild place. And I definitely struggled quite a bit my first couple of years teaching. At first, I thought I went in with this mindset that I'm going to bring all of this background in wellness and yoga and mindfulness with me. And then I just had to survive, as you know, just like totally minute by minute, day by day, just like struggle fest. And then in my second year, after, the summer to reset and refocus, I kind of made a plan of bringing in mindfulness lessons into the classroom every Monday. I called them Mindful Mondays, and we'd always do like a warm up, a bell ringer, do now activity. And so on Mondays, it would always be like a mindfulness video or some sort of little mindfulness lesson that my students would complete. And then we'd also start our class with just like a moment of quiet. We just do a deep breath all together as a class before we started. And it really helped. And my students actually responded super positively to it. They would say that they loved like the peacefulness of the classroom, and that they practiced their mindfulness with their siblings at home and that kind of thing. So I became re-inspired and reinvigorated to keep pursuing that with the students. And then as I went, I tried to introduce it a little bit more to the staff. I used to teach yoga to my colleagues. We'd push the desks aside.
That's awesome.
Yeah, once a week we'd do a little yoga lesson with some of my colleagues who'd like never done yoga before, completely inflexible, but just like having that time to, like, for ourselves to just move a little bit and breathe and just get like a little bit chilled out. So that's my background in Vegas. And then my husband got a job in London. We moved to London, and I started working with EdTech team over there.
Oh, wow.
Because I guess on a side track, I was also becoming really passionate about technology. And so we went over there, did all of that. And that's what led me to the London 19 Innovator Academy. One of the experiences I had in Las Vegas was just burnout and overwhelm, like secondary trauma, lots and lots of, just, it was a lot. And I think any teacher listening understands the experience. So I went in with this kind of general problem. But while I was talking to my interviewee on the phone, like listening for specifics, she was like, honestly, I would like 5 minutes to like go to the bathroom or grab a cup of coffee during the day. And it just like struck chord with me. I was like, oh my gosh. I used to say this all the time. Like, how is it that we are college educated professionals like should be highly respected, and we cannot use the bathroom during the day. It's like,
Yes.
I would either have to like hold it or go find somebody to come step in my room for me, or I was just like, that seems like inhumane. When I actually arrived at the academy, I kind of honed in like with that as my specific problem. And then from there, they take you through a process of like ideating, I mean, coming up with ideas for how you might solve that problem, and then iterating on those ideas and developing them. So what I came up with is an app that allows teachers to request 5-minute breaks from their colleagues. So essentially, they're just all on one big group chat, and you click a button, it pings out to everybody who might be on their plan period, or an administrator who has, is walking through the building. And it's just basically an alert to say, hey, I need 5 minutes to go to the bathroom, get a cup of coffee. Maybe you're having an important phone call. Yeah, and so that's the basic idea.
I loved that concept because I felt like it you had made a little video about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Posted on Twitter. So that was what I saw. And I'd watched it and it was just like, oh my gosh, this is speaking to me right now. So so my backstory is that I also I struggle with anxiety and depression. I've talked about it. I'm very open about it. It wasn't until I actually sought professional help. I actually take medication. I don't think there's any reason to be ashamed of it. And I think that like shame and that like holds a lot of people back. Mm-hmm. And I had what I would consider to be a big turnaround in my career once I sought help. But one of the other things I realized is that it still doesn't take away like existing situations. It's just I've changed the way that I like react to it or my mindset around it, but it still doesn't fix these larger problems of that teachers are overwhelmed, and teachers just by having 5 minutes can change things around. In the morning, for example, I teach 3 classes in a row, 3 periods back to back with those 2 minutes in between. Mm-hmm. So in theory, I should not ever leave the room. I should be with the kids and all this stuff. But there are times when you got to go between, and like they're walking into my room and I'm like, I'll be right back. And you're like running and doing that. More importantly, I think for me is like, if my first period class goes badly, or I have an interaction with a kid, or something happens, like, I don't know, or you're just having a bad day, like even like a personal issue or something, to have to like be on for like those 3 class periods in a row, if I had literally like a 5-minute break, like Jen, go sit on the steps outside mm-hmm. and do a 5-minute mindfulness, just a little meditate, just to clear your head and like reset yourself. I feel like that would be so powerful. But then there's also a part of me that's like, okay, if an outside like non-teacher heard this, they'd be all like, oh, sensitive teachers. And I'm like, no, I don't know if they understand. So sometimes I feel like asking for like help with those types of things, like I'm stressed out. I feel like the reaction, maybe I'm wrong here, but I feel like because people don't fully understand how stressful a teacher's job is, that they think that it's just you're being wussy or you're like you don't know how to handle your stuff. And I don't think people really understand the whole like put on your own oxygen mask before you help other right. people. Does that sort of...
I agree. And I think especially within the teaching profession, you get a couple different attitudes, which I realized once I started asking for feedback mm-hmm. on it. There are, people I think more like you and I who understand like self-care. It's really important. Mm-hmm. You need to celebrate people who are willing to take that. And then there's a more skeptical group that says, either people are going to take advantage of this and they're going to just be like skiving off work. And I have a hard time believing that, like, if somebody says they need 5 minutes, they need 5 minutes. Like, you don't have to be like in the middle of a crisis to just take 5 minutes. Like anybody should be able to do that. But there's definitely, I've received more skeptical feedback about, people are going to either abuse this or judge each other, judge the people who are taking breaks.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that? And yeah, so those were, it's good feedback to understand, because it's not necessarily the framework or the point of view that I was coming into it with.
And as far as like abuse of a system like that, I think that happens no matter what your system is and no matter where you work at. There are always going to be some people, like there is no system that's perfect. Yeah. What I see is sometimes like, I see a lot of like passive aggressiveness at schools where like the people will say something like, teachers need to dress professionally, when really it's just like one teacher that's causing an issue. Like, just go talk to that one teacher. Like, because talking to us in this general way, you have teachers that are like so self-conscious. They're like, oh my God, is it me? What was I doing wrong? You know, that, and the teacher that's doing it is like, well, they're not talking about me. You know what I mean? So it's like, when it comes to stuff like that, like, you need to address a teacher that's going to take advantage of that. Why do you have teachers like that at your school? Like, I don't know.
Right. And that's probably manifesting in other ways besides just the instance of that use case, right?
100%.
That's the case.
Yeah.
I agree.
I've thought about other things as well. One of the things that you kind of hit a nerve with was when you said, like, to take a doctor's phone call that have like hours during the day. That's a huge issue, because let's say you do seek outside help. And one of my counselors, like, their office was open, like the last appointment of the day was like 3:30. I'm like, well, my school gets out at 3:25. Even if your appointment was at 4 o'clock, I might not be able to get there, because you got to get out the parking lot and dodge the parents and get there. It's like, the hours are not teacher friendly. Even just making a phone call is not teacher friendly. So I've been like actively trying to, and this is not my innovator project. My innovator project is this channel, but how can we fix those sorts of things? And I wonder a lot about, like, what if we had virtual sessions that teachers could do online during the day, or professionals that had evening hours, or if you had to then bring your kid with you because it was an evening hours, like, I don't know, a space, like a playroom or something. Right. I was even thinking, like, in my particular building, like, let's say I need 5 minutes and I actually have the opportunity, which is pretty rare to non-existent, but I don't have a place to go.
Yeah.
Our classrooms are all shared. Our spaces, like the teacher's lounge, like, people are in and out all the time. There is no place when, like, I guess I'm kind of like an extroverted introvert. Like, you put me in front of people and I'm like, hey, do the thing. But I so get drained around other people, and I need that time to like recharge. There's no place in the building. Like, I turn off the lights to my room and I like curl up on a beanbag and try to like, and then somebody walks in to like print something. You know, I'm in the room, they flick the lights on and they're like, oh, you scared me. And I'm like, oh, sorry. And then I'm like, oh, great. They're wondering why Jen's sitting in the dark, and that, you know, and really, I just needed that moment. And there's no place for that. So where my brain is going with this was, I saw that somebody had posted online, what did they call it? A teacher wellness room or something. And I'm like, I don't know what fancy school this is that has it. And they posted it online. But I've also seen criticism of those. So on the surface, you're like, oh, that would be great. But then I also see criticism about that in terms of, like, teachers are already so disrespected in society and not seen as professionals, that to like advertise these types of things in these spaces makes us look, I don't know, like misallocation of funds, or makes us look lazy, or makes us look that. I don't know how to address those things, because I absolutely feel the need for it, but I don't know how to get other people to empathize with that situation.
Well, I think it is. I think there is just a kind of societal preconception, and I think there are still a lot of like taboos around things like wellness, even though we have come so far. Like, it is becoming much more the norm to incorporate wellness into like businesses and mainstream society. But I think there is still a lot of just like taboo around it, and it seems a little bit like soft or woo woo, and even if that's maybe not like a dominant feeling of a person, I think there are still some like subconscious and like background feelings around, and just a lot of it, I think, requires vulnerability. You know, like being vulnerable, even just like getting really quiet and closing your eyes for a second takes some vulnerability. And I think that's really, really scary for people. So I think defenses come up around the whole thing.
If you're stuck in a toxic environment, how is the only answer to get out?
I guess the question is if you're in, you know, an environment in a school that's unsupportive of your well-being, are you able to pursue it individually? Like, I don't know. It's a lot harder on your own. For sure. And but there are a lot of, I mean, there's tons of resources out there. This is something I've discovered kind of through my quest is websites like Headspace. Do you know Headspace?
I do.
Calm.com both give free teacher accounts. So if you have
I did not know that Headspace, I knew that Calm did, but I didn't know that Headspace did, and I need to check that out.
And it's my favorite, so I use it almost every day for like literally 3 minutes. They give you like options of like 3 minutes up to like an hour, and I'm like 3 minutes for me today, but it's still better than nothing.
Ooh, I'm gonna check that out. Like, are there specific links that you go to register for education account? Because I need to find those and like put them in the comments.
I just Google Headspace teacher account.
Okay. But I think it builds on itself too. So the first time you do a mindfulness activity with a class, like you were saying, the Mindful Mondays, I did have a 6th grade class I think it was like last year, at the end of last year, that was particularly crazy. And I started doing this like 60-second mindfulness thing, which is a thing I found off of YouTube.
Yeah.
I found that it really did help. And like the first time we did it, you could tell they were kind of like, what is it? But then they got used to doing it, and it became more of a like, so it's much like anything that you try new, like the first time, there are probably going to be some bumps, or it might be weird because it's different. Yeah. But I think the students feed into it, and I think ultimately they do appreciate it, and they see the value in it.
So what I found, if we're talking about like bringing mindfulness into the classroom, most effective is one, like you're saying, it's always really awkward at first because of the vulnerability thing, and because it's like a new weird thing that a lot of them have probably never tried before. Yeah. So I do a ton of like buy-in in the beginning, and I'm like, let me get you bought into this concept, and let me really get everybody like on board and sold on like why we're doing this and why it's important. And we do like a lesson on the scientific benefits of mindfulness, and then we do a lesson on like all the different celebrities who practice mindfulness, and that one is usually the big sell. There's like basketball players like Kobe Bryant, and it's like Lady Gaga and Oprah, and like a bunch of those are already, there are already videos online. So I do this huge buy-in, and I get them like excited, and then I'm like, do you want to do this? Because it could help us, with our sports, and it can help us with our academics, and help us with our stress. And I usually get like a lot of the excitement and buy-in. And then what I found really helped, there's just tons of videos on YouTube. And as we went in the year and it became more and more normalized, we would do more and more like whole class activities where it just became normal. And they're like, oh yeah, mindfulness, sure. And then there was a lot less like giggling and like silly noises and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think really kind of pushing through that initial maybe awkwardness is important. I think there's a lot of teachers that are like, oh, I tried it didn't work, and then you just like give up, So yeah, I think kind of sticking with it and like letting it kind of run through that first awkward phase, I think is like super important. Yeah. So.
And to expect all the giggliness and all of that. Like, that's normal. Even for adults, it's normal.
It's just normal. So I think the last thing I was thinking about in terms of like mindfulness and wellness and things is that I was thinking about it in relation to, I think because I turned most stuff back to tech because that's what I teach, but like just digital wellness and like recognizing that those signs, like when I go on Facebook, I feel like dirt. And like knowing when to kind of self-monitor and stop, I wonder. And that's for students, but also for teachers. Because, I mean, especially with social media and teachers, like you feel badly about yourself or you feel like you're not doing enough.
Technology is a tool, obviously. It's just a tool. And how we can use it for social media, or we can use it for good. And a lot of the things that I do with mindfulness are totally technology based. So having Headspace on your phone and just continuing to make that intention to, when you wake up, maybe click Headspace instead of Twitter. I think a lot of people, they're like, oh, technology is bad, especially like in the conversation of wellness. It's always like, we spend too much time on our phones. We spend too much time doing this. But it's like, it's also this amazing tool, and there's all these amazing resources on it that can help us. We just got to choose the light side, not the dark side.
Do you have other, how do you prefer people find you online or reach you, or is there anything?
I have a website and then Twitter.
Oh, well, thank you so much for talking to me. I know our conversation's like 40 minutes on here, and I strive to cut it down to under 10. So I don't know. Let's see how it goes. I never really know what I'm doing. This is just sort of how I roll.
Learn by doing. It's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
It's really nice to talk to you. It was a lot of fun.
Be sure to subscribe to the Reset EDU channel for the latest project updates and episodes. If you're interested in a reset for your own classroom, be sure to fill out the form at bit.ly/ResetEDU. Thank you for watching.